Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Good morning, everybody, or it might be afternoon, it might be evening, but welcome to MotoAmerica's podcast, Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. I'm Paul Carruthers, the communications manager for MotoAmerica, and I'm joined as always by Sean Bice, who's my cohort in podcasts and everything else that has to do with MotoAmerica and PR, etc. So, Sean, how are you this morning?
Man, I'm great. It's funny how this one podcast, we do them every week, as we always say, and we've never missed one. And they sneak up on us on these ones where we have like one weekend off between race weekends. So I'm glad we got this one in. We're like a day later on recording it than we normally do, but we still got it in. So I'm glad about that. But yeah, everything's good. I mean, I drove back, I drove down to VIR and back. It's about an 8-hour trip, and it's not too bad. I mean, I go up through West Virginia and through some of the tunnels and, a lot of windy roads and stuff. So it's actually not a bad trip, especially if the weather's pretty good. But, it's funny, Paul, on the way back, I mean, I get home so much later than you guys do with changing the clocks. And even though you're flying way across country, that part I do envy a little bit. That you're home before I am on Mondays, usually on those trips. So that's cool.
Yeah, the time change helps a bit when we're flying that way, but then going the other way, obviously we suffer and basically lose an entire day getting there. But yeah, I don't know how you do those drives. I'd be good for like up to 5 hours, and then after that it's got to have wings on it for me to want to get in.
Yeah, I used to kind of limit it, and when I started doing it a couple of years ago, I thought, it's really not too bad. I mean, it's not bad. And I always say, well, I can take my time and stop. Well, I don't. I try to get there as quickly as I can. And if I have to, I have to stop for gas, and I don't spend too much time because, I feel like I'm in the cannonball run and I've got to get there in record time or something. So, but it's funny, for the fans that don't know, a lot of times our group, we stay in an Airbnb together, and it's fun. We enjoy it. But these guys have usually gotten the groceries because I'm driving in later. But this time I said, I got to get the groceries. So I stopped on my way down, and that was fun when you have a list from a bunch of guys, and it's like, Paul, I mean, you have to zigzag back and forth to get everything. Nothing's like, all the produce is not in one section on the list. So it's like, oh, I forgot that yellow onion. So I have to go back to the other side of the store. But it's kind of fun shopping for our little group. I have a good time with that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you do, because I always dread it, because usually when it's us, it's like 4 of us together, and then it's like, it's a bit of a crapshoot in there. Everybody's running different ways and grabbing what they need. But no, it works out nice. It's nice to not go out to dinner. And I think no matter what we end up eating, it's a hell of a lot healthier than what it is if we go out to eat. So it's it's kind of cool. It's a little bonding and all that stuff. And yeah, we had a pretty different week this week, with all the things that went down at at VIR with Danilo Petrucci and all that stuff. It kind of, I came back to a bunch of stomach punches and we had to deal with all that. But it's, I think things will get better. Hopefully, my hope is that he comes back and he's okay, and we can kind of go forward with things. And everybody lives and learns from these kind of things, and hopefully he learns some things, and I know we've learned some things as well. So
yeah,
it'll just be nice to put it behind us and get back to racing motorcycles again, instead of a bunch of damage control, et cetera.
Yeah. 2 things that I want to say about that, Paul, and I'm not going to get into the whole controversy, but and I know you don't know what I'm about to say here, but one of the things that occurred to me is, in any given race weekend with practice, qualifying, and all that, I meant to go back and look up how many laps Danilo Petrucci ran at VIR, but it's kind of interesting that was his final lap, his final time crossing that start finish out of God knows how many laps that guy did over the weekend. And it's just weird that he probably had the most knowledge at that point of that final turn, because he'd been, that final start finish, because he'd been through it so many times. The other part of it too that I thought about, and it's kind of lost in this a little bit, is the guy was absolutely going for it on that last lap. he was trying to get second. He was not going to settle for third, even though it ended up being that way. And it seemed like a fait accompli that he was going to be third, but he was doing everything he could to get second. So what's lost in this a little bit is the guy has a heart of a lion and is an incredible racer and was not going to give up for anything. And of course it was his demise in many ways, but those were 2 points that I just wanted to bring up out of all of this stuff that's been talked about. So,
yeah, I mean, he's not a guy that's phoning things in by any means. He raced till the finish, and that was he saw an opportunity there to try to maybe get him at the finish line, and then next thing he knows, he's run out of racetrack a little bit there and had his accident. And the whole thing's just a shame. It's I had such high hopes for him and him coming to our series, and we got so much good publicity out of it early on, and it's a pretty big bump in the road, but I think we can all recover from it and move forward. I want him to be in our series. I want him to be happy. I try to work with him as much as I can. And, there's something that I don't know what it is, but there's a little something there that I think he's not entirely happy. And I mean, this was prior to what happened on Sunday. And I don't know why, but, I'd like to, I don't know. We just got to go forward and get through all this and people start to get back to just talking about motorcycle racing instead of the other stuff. But I think we'll be okay. I think I'm hopeful that he heals up and comes back and he's with us at MotoAmerica and we can get moving again.
Yeah, it was interesting, Paul, that you and I on Thursday sat down with him. We were sitting next to his crew chief, Maurizio Perlini, and he was sitting there and we had a delightful conversation with him. He's talking about something that happened to him when he was a lot younger he's got a lifetime scar on one arm, but he was recounting that situation and he was fine. I was talking to him about an upcoming interview that we were going to have him do. And it's kind of been put on hold now with a national publication and, until we kind of figure things out. But, we went into that weekend, as usual, he was his usual self on that whole thing. And then all this other stuff happened. But I really, really look forward to getting back to the point where, he can be that guy and we can have that relationship with him and, discuss racing and everything else about his career. So, All
right, well, let's move on and chat with our guest today, who's Corey Alexander. Corey's season started out perfectly with a victory in the opening round of the Yuasa Stock 1000 Championship at Road Atlanta. He had a hell of a battle with his good buddy Michael Gilbert and beat him by an inch or two there at the line. So the season started out really well, and then things sort of changed a bit at VIR with a crash. A bad crash, actually. I mean, anybody who's seen the video is like, wow, that was a big one. And it was nice to see him, he's not okay. Obviously he's got a concussion and et cetera, but it could have been a lot worse. And, luckily there was a lot of air fence there. And I think Corey will speak highly of that when we get a chance to talk to him here in a second. But now he finds himself, 38 points behind. He's 7th in the championship, but it's still so early. I mean, it's not, he's got the speed, the experience, and the skill to potentially win the rest of the races. I mean, that's how good he is. And that's how well he's done in that class previously. So we'll have to see where it goes from here. But Corey, welcome to our podcast, and we're extremely happy that you're as good as you are at this point.
That makes two of us, that's for sure. But yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Tell us a little bit about. Let's start with the bad, which was obviously VIR. We can talk a little bit about the crash. We can talk a little bit about your recovery, what you have to do to get ready for MotoAmerica. And then we'll back up a little bit and talk about the better news, which was obviously your victory at Road Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, going into Virginia, obviously we had some momentum behind us, and personally, it's kind of been a goal of mine to be able to push everybody else and be the guy to kind of set the pace and try to get pole and just do these things that can kind of put some pressure on the guys that I'm racing with. So that's been a focus of mine this year. So going into Saturday morning qualifying, we had already been on provisional pole, but Michael and Hayden and Jeff had all gone quite a bit faster already. So we were pushing to get back on top and or at least, be comparable to them in time. So, yeah, I mean, basically I was just pushing. I mean, I knew I'd probably gotten a little bit aggressive as I started to have the moment, and I honestly thought I had it saved. I mean, it's kind of a weird spot to have a crash, and you know, as late as it was to get kind of thrown off the bike, it wasn't the result I was expecting out of that. I thought I had it under control until I didn't, which is usually how it goes, I guess, right? But anyway, so yeah, I mean, that's kind of how that went, and obviously I'm very lucky to, you know, one, be supported by great companies like Arai and Alpine Stars. I mean, my upper body with the airbag going off, I mean, I've got virtually no bruises, no pain or anything on my upper body, which is amazing. And you know, my lower body got a little bit banged up from hitting foot pegs and the ground and whatnot. But otherwise, you know, between Alpine Stars and Arai, I did unfortunately get knocked out. I don't really know for how long, but I got knocked out, but you know, in any scenario, it always could be worse. You know, I'm here talking. So, and then obviously the air fence with Road Racing World, I can't even imagine if that wasn't there. I mean, I think I hit like the last stretch of it. So, you know, fortunately it happened early enough on the exit to where there still was some air fence. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't imagine if that wasn't there. And you know, I spoke to John Ulrich. He texted me the other day, actually, just saying thank you, because I put out something on my birthday, and I think some people donated, which was amazing, to the Action Fund, which supports getting all the air fence to the races and purchasing it and maintaining it and whatnot. But you know, we kind of just talked about, you know, how lucky it was just to have it there, and yeah, very fortunate for sure.
You know, Corey, over that weekend, going into the weekend, we had known that we had deployed some new sections of soft barriers at that track, and I was actually going to write a story about it, and it turned out that when that happened, it gave me a chance to put a comment on the post of the video, and I talked to John Ulrich about this and said, hey, I'm gonna make a comment about, you know, clearly the Road Racing World Action Fund helped so much. And then there was with the soft barriers that are there. I can't say soft air barriers. There's a reason for that. Sometimes they're not air, or sometimes they have air in them in a different way. So we kind of call them in a generic sense, soft barriers. And yep. Yeah. And you picked up on it too. And there was a story in Road Racing World about it. So it gave us a chance to really talk about the benefits of that. And I know all the riders, to a man, every single one, a man and a woman, you know, everybody that races in our series is very appreciative of having that. And it's so much better than it used to be. There is something I want to talk about though. And you and I talked about this on Monday when I called you. I was so worked up about this thing that I called you and forgot to wish you a happy birthday. So I had to call back later and make sure I said that too. But there was a person who is, I'm not even going to call this person a journalist, although I guess he's supposed to be. And I'm not going to say the guy's name, but it's somebody in Europe who had commented that your helmet came off. It was, and as bad as the situation was with Danilo Petrucci, that was way worse, because in his mind, he said, your helmet came off, the strap must have broken, this, that, and the other thing. And I got in touch with you. And of course, there was some time where you can't really account for what went on. We've looked at the video. I've talked to some helmet people. Everybody seems to agree who understands the situation, including you, that your helmet didn't come off, because your helmet was on when emergency people came over to see you, and it didn't magically fly back on your head, and they certainly would put it back on your head. I've since learned that most people are able to basically rotate their head 180 degrees. So if you're looking straight forward, you can go about 90 degrees to the left, 90 degrees to the right, give or take. I mean, everybody's got that issue where you get over to the side and you're like, man, my neck hurts. But and then a perfectly fitting helmet is going to deflect a little bit more, because the cheek pads inside the helmet can compress a little bit. Obviously, when you've got a perfectly fitting helmet and you hold your head steady and you can move it a little bit, it's meant to do that. And in that video, I've looked at it a million times, Corey. In that video, you went into that soft barrier backwards, and your body, basically it was at an angle, I think, and you can describe it to us, but it caused your body to spin, it looks like to the right. And without the benefit of seeing your body, because your body was kind of in that soft barrier and it was already absorbing the impact. It looks like your helmet went right around. And I firmly believe that you weren't looking out your ear hole, as they say, like a football player would. You can't do that. And it certainly didn't come off. So I was pretty upset about that. You and I talked about it, and it was cool because I called Wayne after that, Wayne Rainey, and talked to him a little bit. And Wayne said, well, actually, Corey, there's no better person to be an eyewitness to something than the rider themselves. And he said, and Corey actually commented on that post. And I said, oh, wow, he did? And he goes, yeah. And I said, oh, well, that's cool, because I talked to him in the morning. And so I think, I'm not trying to take credit for that, Corey, but I know you became aware of it and you took the time to go on there and kind of say, well, listen, this is what happened. And I had to laugh because you said, I'm going to semi-quote you on this. I think you said you don't like shitty journalism or whatever. And I said, well, listen, if I ever have shitty journalism, let me know ahead of time. But speak to us about that. I mean, obviously you can't speak for every moment of it, but from what you saw, your helmet.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried not to watch it too much, to be honest with you.
Okay. I understand.
Because I don't remember it, so it's kind of a nice thing by design that I don't remember it, to be honest, because that'd probably be a lot more traumatic. But either way, I did see it a little bit, and it is for sure a bit like an exorcism,
It's violent.
So,
violent. You didn't even believe your head rotated like that, but your body rotated with it, right? Didn't you spin from right to left because of the angle of that air fence and how you went?
Honestly, I didn't analyze it that hard. I do know I was probably knocked out before I hit the wall, so I was probably beyond limp, which they say, usually drunk drivers survive the crashes because they're limp, So I'm sure a certain part of that, fortunately or not, maybe being limp also, worked in my favor in terms of not really having any severe injury otherwise, So, but yeah, and I actually, it's kind of the crazy part, just social media and stuff these days. Obviously, you have the downside of it with guys like that, taking things out of context. But I was actually able to connect with the corner worker that was in the corner. Reached out to me on Instagram and just said, she had made a donation actually to their fence fund, and how thankful she was to see that I was okay and whatnot. But I was able to actually ask her, like, what did you see? And because obviously I didn't think my helmet came off. I have no damage to my face at all, and I would think hitting anything that quick or whatever the case is, I wasn't dirty. There would have been some kind of effect if my helmet did actually come off, but I didn't have a way to 100% verify until I spoke with her, and she said, yeah, she was actually arguing with me to not take my helmet off, and I guess my stubbornness persevered even in a concussed state. So I actually took my helmet off, which probably wasn't a good idea considering how my neck could have been more severely damaged, but I don't remember it, so in other words, it didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, so that's interesting. So you took your helmet off. Obviously, the strap was intact. That was the other part of it. Speculating that the strap broke and all this kind of stuff, which kind of goes to, some things about the quality of the helmet. And I know the helmet you wear is an extremely good helmet, and so many riders wear that brand in our paddock and worldwide that I don't have any doubt about the quality of that helmet or what it did. And that's good to hear that corner worker knew that. And I mean, they know, those guys know there are procedures anyway. You guys have, well, tell us about this other thing, Corey. Don't you have some kind of these things where you can pull out the cheek pads to carefully remove the helmet if they do it?
Yeah, there's like I forget what the exact name of it is, but there's these little orange things on the arise that allow medical workers to do exactly what you said, to be able to remove it in the event that they need to carefully. Yep. I would imagine, me being me, I probably just ripped it off like I normally would. So, but either way, yeah, I'm happy to not remember the impact on all that stuff, because it probably would have been a lot more scary. And definitely, like I said, thankful to the air fence and obviously the corner workers and everybody. And to my knowledge, the whole thing was about as smooth as it could have gone from a safety perspective, contrary to somebody else's kind of experience with what went on Sunday. But I was to the hospital, CT scans, and back to the track by 5 p.m., 4 p.m. On Saturday. So I think it all went pretty well considering,
Corey, when you did get back to the track, did you try to talk your way into racing with your team and they talked you out of it? Or at that point, did you kind of realize that wasn't a good thing to even think about?
No, I watched my race from the hospital. I wasn't back that early, but definitely
the next day.
Yeah, it was the day of, I was kind of like, oh, maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll feel better. I mean, I actually fortunately haven't had any concussions as an adult. I had one when I was a lot younger. So I don't have much experience with concussions and kind of knowing how I react to them, and not that everyone is the same either way, but some part of me was hoping I would wake up Sunday morning and basically be 100% fine. I thought I was until I got out of bed, and I realized that I wasn't at all. So I'm still struggling a little bit with it, and doing everything I can to try to get rid of the symptoms, just slow moving and a little bit forgetful and things like that. So just trying to do everything I possibly can to move beyond that. But yeah, it wasn't really an option. Obviously, my uncle runs our team with me, so it's a little bit more personal than just being like riding for a team and having a boss type of thing. He's got a lot more of a personal touch on everything. So yeah, there was no way he was gonna let me ride it, and wouldn't let me ride at the test either. This past Tuesday, Wednesday at Pittsburgh, which, I know myself well enough that I wouldn't have been able to ride. I still can't. I mean, I'm just starting to be able to ride in the car without having like weird things go on. So
there's no point.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't put myself in a position to race. That's for sure.
Well, as you're watching those two races, you're probably thinking, okay, other than Hayden Gillim, I mean, everybody just made a mess of it, so to speak. Especially our good buddy, Michael Gilbert. I mean, I texted his mechanic, Josh, and I can do this because I know Michael well enough and we ride bicycles and stuff together. But I said, hey, Josh, I'm just checking to make sure his plane didn't crash, because he crashed everything else that weekend. But
oh my God,
he enjoyed it, but I'm sure Michael won't. But I haven't talked to him yet. But yeah, I mean, these guys just everybody had some issues that kind of other than Hayden Gillim, you're by no means out of this thing, and it's always better to have these things happen early in the year than it is later in the year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the one downside to the stock 1000 class is that we don't have double headers every weekend. So while there's I guess 7 rounds left, there's really only like 10 races or 9 races. So it's not as long of a calendar left as it would be if I was in Superbike or something like that. There's not as many opportunities to gain points back. So definitely have to be aggressive and also smart in how we try to mitigate that points gap for sure. But for me, honestly, I was sitting there kind of rooting for Michael and Travis, because I know for me personally, Hayden's kind of my main focus for the year, and so without those guys there putting any pressure on him, it makes his life really easy. So I was a little bit disappointed. Obviously I'm rooting for Mikey anyway, just because he's my buddy, but to see Hayden be able to ride off into the sunset both races was a little bit tough. And I know if we were there, we would have had the pace to be able to do something. So same thing with Travis. I mean, Travis, I think before the red flag on, I think it was Sunday, was there a red flag, or Saturday? One of the 2 races, it seemed like he had the pace to be able to go out and win it, and then just couldn't get it together for the end of the race. But that's racing, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Boy, Corey, you brought up a really good point about Stock 1000, and it's something I need to continually remind myself of, because on Sunday morning we had done an interview with your uncle Richie Alexander, who is the manager of that side of the team, Tytler Cycle, Ride HBMC Racing, and that part of that team, and it's a 4-rider team altogether, but I'm talking about your side, which is obviously you and Travis Wyman on BMW M1000 RRs. And one of the things that Richie sort of underscored to me when I talked to him is the Superbike racing in Superbike, which you guys are not doing Superbike Cup, you're actually doing true Superbike on those bikes that are stock 1000 bikes. But that's really, he says, for all intents and purposes, to give you a little bit more seat time out there and see what you can do. But the focus is absolutely stock 1000. It's the stock 1000 championship. And to your point, it's not 2 races every weekend. So every race in any class counts, but for sure, you guys, you have a fairly compressed schedule. But is that accurate, what Richie's saying, that, you know, you go for it and do what you can in Superbike, but it's stock 1000 that you have your eyes on more than anything?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously we're not going to go out and win the Superbike championship. And, you know, winning races is great, or, you know, getting top 5s or top 7s in Superbike is great. But at the end of the day, the championship is kind of what we're after. So definitely for me personally, I think we have a better bike than we've had the last couple of years. So I feel a little bit more competitive in Superbike, which is nice to be able to go out and learn a little bit and be a little bit closer to the Superbike guys. To, you know, I think for me, like, if I can go out and ride around and ride behind Richie Escalante or Jake Lewis or Hector and PJ and just pick up 1 or 2 things in a lap, and I can carry that over to super stock, you know, it just makes me better there too, and better as a rider, you know. And obviously I'm still learning every time I ride. So that for me is the focus. Obviously, you know, the backside of it as a team, you know, there's a lot more reasons why we're running Superbike to make it make sense, you know, for our structure and program financially and things like that. So there's kind of a multitude of it, but yeah, super stock is our focus, and Superbike is kind of just an added, like he said, seat time and time to learn.
You know, I want to talk about the team structure a little bit. This is you got to be proud of this. This is quite a thing to see. And for the fans that have been to our races, or the fans that are going to be coming to our races or should be coming to our races, it's quite a sight in our paddock to see that there are 2 transporters side by side. There is a Tytler Cycle racing transporter that is what Hector Barbara why can't I think? Oh, PJ Jacobsen. Sorry, my goodness, I lost it there for a minute. Underneath their part of their canopy, and then right next door is Travis and Corey under the Tytler Cycle Ride HVMC Racing. And as we mentioned, your uncle Richie Alexander is team manager of the one side. Dave Weaver is manager of the other side, and he does some crew chiefing, and obviously Richie does as well. And it's 4 riders and it's 2 transporters. Oh, and Zach Schumacher too. Sorry, yep. Corey. Yeah, Zach, who I want to make sure I mention, because Zach is from Wisconsin and his home track is coming up at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, at RoadAmerica. And sorry, Zach, I don't know why I do this to you. I got to get to know you a little better. We talked a little bit at the track on Sunday, but it's 5 riders, and it's a very impressive setup. And they've got some news that's coming up for RoadAmerica, and I'm not going to give it away, Corey. You know, I wanted to write a story on it. I talked to you yesterday, and on top of everything else you did, you managed the PR for that team. I don't think I'm going to get you to be able to announce it right now. You said you're going to put something out probably on Tuesday this week, but let me ask you. I mean, are you gonna reveal it right now for us, or are you going to hold off on that?
No, I'll probably let the release come out first and get everybody a little bit excited. But yeah, it's a cool name to have on board. Somebody with a lot of experience and pedigree, and honestly, he was very important to really sparking the interest of Michael Kiley, who is the owner of Tytler Cycle, to get us to where we're at. You know, I mean, it doesn't just happen out of nowhere. You know, somebody's got to spark that interest, and this guy was a big part of that. So yeah, excited to announce that. I think there'll be a lot of I don't know how to say it politely, a lot of the older fans of racing will be excited to see who's coming back.
Well, that's an awesome teaser you just gave it. That's even more than I thought you'd give away. So there's that to look forward. What's that, Paul?
He's not that concussed. You thought you could tease him into blurting out the whole thing.
Well, he did more than I thought, though. But anyway, so yeah, that's news to come next week, and that's exciting to hear. But as it stands now, 5 riders on that team, and as I said, you guys race in both you and Travis, and well, Zach races in Superbike as well, correct?
So he does Superbike Cup.
Okay.
Primarily stock 1000. Superbike Cup is something he also participates in. And then Travis and I run both classes, and then the Superbike guys obviously are just in Superbike.
Yeah, and your bike, I want to talk about this M1000RR. It's a pretty incredible bike. I mean, it's got the wings on it. It's a cool looking bike. I mean, it's obviously being raced in World Superbike, and there's a couple iterations of it. There's a true full-on Superbike that has a little bit more that you can do with it. Yours is as I understand it, a stock 1000 spec bike that you race in Superbike, which can be done. It's no problem with it. There's a few more things you can do to them, but the bike is pretty incredible in its street bike form. They just put out a special it's an M edition bike, so it's basically like the M3, the M5 cars, the BMW cars that are out there. They're the performance oriented versions of their cars, and this is the first M performance oriented edition of the motorcycles, and they actually just did an anniversary one to mark the I can't remember what exact anniversary it was, but of that M class of cars and this motorcycle. So they've got one now, I think it's yellow or something, but they've had the bike out for a little while, and you're on this bike. It's a street bike, it's a stock 1000 bike, it's a super bike, it's all things. It's got carbon fiber bodywork. It's pretty darn incredible, and those BMWs are known for some pretty amazing power on them. And talk about the bike a little bit, and give us a little bit of the difference with regard to the Superbike versus what you're actually riding in Superbike and stock 1000.
Yeah, so basically, we have a technical partnership with Alpha Racing, which is BMW Motorrad's kind of racing retail outlet, if you will. They don't, BMW corporate doesn't sell race parts and race bikes and whatnot. So Alpha is their independent kind of partner for that. So we, when we set out to do this whole thing, if you were going to go out and develop your own bike, you'd be kind of crazy to try to do it in the time frame that we did it. So we looked to Alpha, for example, to partner with. So our bikes are Alpha's stock 1000 spec bike, which Sean or Paul, you guys could go and order online right now if you wanted to. Our exact bike, more or less, from Alpha, and it'll arrive in a crate from Germany. With shipping right now, I can't guarantee how quickly it'll come, but you can do that. So nonetheless, that's kind of our spec of bike. What that is obviously we've got to change some things for MotoAmerica rules from some of the other series in the world at the stock level, but generally speaking, it's very, very much a stock bike as it comes from BMW with a kit electronic system, meaning we swap out Alpha rather swaps out the stock wiring harness for a race wiring harness, the stock dash for a race dash. We opted to not use the carbon wheels which come on the bike. It's a bit of a funny thing, but generally speaking, worldwide, you're not allowed to use carbon wheels. But
yes,
in MotoAmerica, actually, we could have, which is a bit weird. But we opted not to. So we run Dymag wheels, which is a partner of ours, and they make a aftermarket wheel that fits within MotoAmerica's new price cap for the stock class. So I think they're, I don't remember the exact limit, but they're beneath that, and they're really nice wheels. So that's probably the biggest change for the bike, is we're running a different wheel set than what they come with. But yeah, otherwise it's very close to stock. Obviously we have a shock and fork internals and whatnot, but the main bones of the bike, if you will, are stock. And as you would buy from Alpha, we have a few different partners that we change some of the parts out for, but generally speaking, it's all what you can get from Alpha. And then the super bikes, they obviously have the ability to change a lot more. So they have different forks, actual fork tubes, not just internals. They have different, better brake calipers, which we can't change. They can do triple clamps, so they can adjust the offsets. And then obviously the swing arm is the other big change that they can do that we can't, which allows them to do a lot more adjustability with swing arm angles and pivots and all kinds of things to just try to get a little bit more grip and things with the bike. And then beyond that, their electronics are open, so they can do things like sectoring, which, gives you the ability to, pick parts of the track where you might want different things to happen with the electronics and so on and so forth. Whereas, we're not able to do that in stock 1000. We're kind of just stuck with the parameters of what the bike offers with the stock kit electronics. So, yeah, I mean, that's the gist of it. They're definitely quite a bit different, but similar in a lot of ways. Obviously, the Superbikes too can have more upgraded motors, which the stock BMW motors are pretty unreal with how much power they have. That's probably been the biggest thing for me, just with my size. And the Kawasaki, I think I was at a pretty big deficit. Where now on the BMW, I'm not having to make up everything I lost on a straightaway for the rest of the track. I can actually, just ride and not have to make that up all the time. So that's been a big help for me personally, is just having a little bit more horsepower.
Well, as Sean mentioned, the team is impressive. I mean, I walk by there all the time, obviously, and you see those two big semis, and you see all the bikes and the crew, and everything looks good. And I have yet to have the opportunity to meet Michael Kiley, but I will do so at the next round. It's important, we all want, when these new teams come in, I think collectively the paddock wants them to do well, because it keeps whoever's spending the money inspired, it keeps them happy, and they're obviously in racing because they want to win. To me, you winning at Road Atlanta and Kyle Wyman finishing third in Superbike, I mean, that must have just maybe, I know you're more involved with the team than just as being a racer. I mean, that has to have been oh, cool. This is, we had a good weekend, and the team owner is going to be happy, and we can build on this. Is that how that worked? I mean, that had to have been a pretty amazing weekend for him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think everybody was very excited. Michael's a very, very, very smart guy. And so he's realistic and his expectations. He didn't assume he was going to come into this and win it all, kind of thing. I mean, he knows the reality of racing and obviously the hurdles of a new team and really a new bike at the level we're trying to run it at, so yeah, for sure. It was definitely exciting to get the result. I mean, I think on the stock side of things, that's what we expect. I mean, to have an effort the size of the effort we have with the machinery we have and the people we have working for us and so on and so forth. And then obviously, I've had some success in the class. Travis has had a lot of success in the class. We expect to win. Mm-hmm. For Superbike, I think the podium with Kyle, obviously Kyle filling in itself was unexpected, and that whole series of events. But yeah, I mean, I think it was good. It made it feel possible, especially on the Superbike side of things, that we're on the right track and things are moving forward. With that being said, obviously there's always a little bit of a, once you get that first one, you kind of expect it regularly, and
right.
But I think everybody kind of knows that that's not the reality of it. And those guys up front with Jake and Cam and obviously Danilo, and those guys are, they're just going to be tough no matter what. You could be on the best bike and you're still going to have to work really hard to beat those guys. So I think everybody's pretty realistic. But yeah, for sure, for me, from what I have to do on the team side of things is really just doing everything we can to see how we can grow it into something that's sustainable. Obviously, Michael's come in with his partners and whatnot to make this possible. But from a longevity standpoint, we've got to work to find other sponsors and things like that. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And obviously, results are a big part of that, but results aren't everything anymore. So there's a lot more to behind the scenes and off the track that we're just trying to be creative with and see how we can attract outside people to kind of look at this as an avenue to advertise and that kind of thing.
Corey, since we haven't had you on this podcast before, and it's amazing that we haven't after this much time, and I'm embarrassed and regret that a little bit, honestly, but I do want to talk about your career. One of the things I've kind of forgotten a little bit, but I was quite aware of it a few years ago, is you had started in our series prior to MotoAmerica actually, and did really well. And then you went on a hiatus for a while. You did flat track and all kinds of stuff. And it's almost hard to believe for me to think back now that you had that hiatus in between, because it seems like you've been racing with us all along. And I mean, you've obviously done so many things great things in the MotoAmerica class. I mean, when you look back at that, it didn't seem like it had an adverse effect on your racing career to be away for a while. In fact, maybe it helped you. I don't know. Maybe being in flat track, or, you have a real good understanding of management of a team. And clearly it seems like in the future, way down the road, when you've decided you're not going to race anymore, you're still going to be involved in racing in some way. So looking back at that time period, do you think it was helpful for you? I mean, I think there was a time there where, it was like, geez, you might not be racing anymore. And now it's almost inconceivable that was the case. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I actually, my birthday obviously was Monday. And so I'm 28 now, which, in my mind is old because of how long I've been racing. And, the kids I'm racing against now, I get kids like, Brandon Pash or whatever that are, I don't know how old he is. He acts like he's 10, so it's hard to say, but I was thinking about that and kind of just like, in some ways, obviously, appreciative to be where I'm at and still be able to do this. But I do often wonder, those few years that were probably kind of my prime years, to really potentially grow and take steps up the ladder in terms of, career wise, I guess, if you will, in the series. And I kind of had to start over again from stock 1000. That's where I've been. Obviously I'd love to be on a top superbike ride or whatever the case is, but yeah, I mean, I think for sure it was a little bit of a reality check, kind of had to work at the dealership here in New York for a couple of years and literally do a 9 to 6 every day kind of thing, and go home and repeat and kind of just feel what that felt like, which isn't fun. And then also, when I was younger racing, I had my uncle, and I was fortunate enough to be kind of put into some really, really good opportunities because of him and his work with the Michael Jordan Motorsports back when that was around. And, I was able to do really well when I was young, but that was also, when around that time when MotoAmerica kind of changed hands and took over, there wasn't a lot of opportunity. So, when the Michael Jordan thing went away and my uncle wasn't working in the series anymore and whatnot, it was kind of like, all right, well, this is it. So, and he was kind of the same way. He went back home to work at the dealership and focus on building our business at home with our family and whatnot. And, obviously I still wanted to race. So it was kind of like I had to figure it out myself. And flat track seemed like an interesting opportunity, I guess, if you will. Looking back at it now, I can't believe I actually did it. I like literally just like sold my car and bought a Chevy Express van like every other flat track racer, and had a really good, personal sponsor of mine that really, honestly, I mean, he was giving me a place to live. He gave me a bike to ride and a little bit of help, and went and did flat track with Rispoli for the year and a half, and had some really, really, really good times. I did really, really bad. I was really awful at flat track, and but it made me a lot better of a rider, and it made me a lot more I think hungry in a way to figure out how to do it on my own, and so yeah, that kind of led into coming back and just doing 3 rounds with MotoAmerica. I guess now that was 2019, the end of 2019, and we got like I think 3 podiums, which was crazy, and obviously the series has continued to grow and elevate, and the class has gotten stronger. I mean, we're breaking lap records right now that seemed unbreakable last year. So yeah, excited to be where I'm at. But for sure, those 3 years, I think, like I said, we're really, really strong in terms of learning and growing as a person and an adult and things like that. But also, in some ways frustrating, because those were valuable kind of years, I think, in my career of racing, now that I'm an old guy.
Well, I mean, heck, I I certainly don't think of you as being an old guy. I still think you have a lot of upside, but I want to give you a chance to talk about the family's dealership a little bit. You mentioned you would work there, and I actually don't know the answer to this, Corey. I know you were there doing that 9 to 5 or whatever your hours were. That's Hudson Valley Motorcycle. It's in Carmel, New York, correct? Is that exactly where it is, or is it?
Ossining, New York. Actually, we're in Westchester County.
Okay.
Carmel is where I grew up.
Carmel.
When
Okay.
I was younger, yeah. But yeah, the dealership's here in Ossining, which is if you ever watched like Law and Order, Sing Sing Prison, that's the same town. Yeah, we're in Ossining, New York. It's like 30 miles north of the Manhattan.
And it's a multi-line dealership, family run for a long time. Aren't you guys the oldest? You're the oldest dealership for one brand. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, we don't name that brand anymore. They didn't want to support us.
Okay,
so
I won't say.
We don't talk about it.
All right,
No,
well, I won't say, but that just proves you guys have been around for a long time. Okay.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, we're the oldest Kawasaki dealer in existence, I believe. We actually started with Kawasaki before Kawasaki started with Kawasaki. Believe it or not, we started selling Kawasaki's before Kawasaki USA was incorporated in 1966. So yeah, we've been around a long time with Kawasaki and Suzuki too, actually. But yeah, we're Kawasaki, Suzuki, and Ducati, and as well as Energica, which is that electric bike brand they race in Moto E.
So are you able? Well, do you still do any? Do you still work at the dealership at all? I guess is what I'm struggling to ask you.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of the marketing stuff. It's been, honestly, COVID's been so crazy for our industry that we haven't had to do any marketing. We don't have anything to sell hardly, so there's nothing to market. We can't keep stuff in stock, so fortunately, that's worked out at the time. At the same time, I've had to kind of take this whole new project with Tytlers and trying to grow the team and whatnot. So I live less than a mile from the dealership, so I'm there still every day. But yeah, I'm not necessarily working like I was. I was actually, me and my dad were selling bikes for 2 years. It was just me and him. So I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not selling bikes myself. I'm not the sales guy, but I still am there and still doing everything I can to try to grow the business in any way that we can.
Yeah, it's cool. That I'm partial to it, Paul, because I always tell this story, but growing up in New York, a long way from where Corey's from, though, about as far away as you can get and still be in the same state. But anybody from New York, I always gravitate towards them quite a bit, and that's how I feel about the Alexanders. And just quickly to mention Corey's uncle, Richie Alexander. I mean, to me, the guy's one of, I just have a revered place in my heart for him because he won a championship years ago. I remember on a Yamaha. Paul, you should mention, the connection.
Won it on a Suzuki.
Well, right. But he did win a Yamaha championship. I'm pretty sure. Didn't he, Corey?
No, he won the 98 Super Sport Championship, 750 Super Sport on a Suzuki. And then he raced the Yamaha, I think in like 01, like one of his last seasons, but he never won a championship. I think maybe a podium with the Yamaha, but by that time he had gotten pretty run down by Lyme disease. So that was right around when he retired.
That's right. My God, Paul, I've been humbled by that. Hey, but Paul, quickly talk about Richie and your connection to him, just so the fans.
Well, my dad worked with him when they were at Chaparral, which were Suzuki's. Damon Buckmaster and Richie and Tom Kipp, and they ran a few guys through there, and Richie was, I think, there the entire time. I think it was 2 or 3 years. But no, I think that's why Richie's so smart. I think he learned from my dad how to do this thing. But it's worked out really well, and my dad always talks about him, and well, I can tell him now that my dad said hello. So yeah, it's always nice to see Richie. I don't get to talk to him as much. He's always busy, and I'm busy and stuff. But we all always have that connection, and now it's nice to see Corey do as well as he is, and we'll let him go at this point. But Corey, we're glad you're okay. And I'm not a doctor, but I would recommend getting as much rest as you can and let that thing clear out a little bit. And hopefully you're good to go here next week at Road America and can turn things around and get back to where you were.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm doing as much as I can. I've got some avocado toast sitting in front of me right now, so I'm eating all the green stuff.
Yeah, anything that's green, just eat.
That's what I've been doing. Yeah, I've been trying.
And I also heard you like if you blend carrots and drink carrot juice, but I'm not. I think green sounds better, but at this point, try anything, right?
Try anything. Yeah, try anything. Try anything twice. If I like it, maybe 3 times.
Are you going to try to sell us something, Sean?
Yeah, but I was going to say, man, if this podcast is any indication, Corey, you're at the top of your game. You got your memory going. You even invoked some memories about your uncle, and we didn't catch you not understanding hardly anything. I'm the one that didn't remember your teammate Zach Schumacher, so that was kind of my stupidity, and I probably hit my head every day and don't even realize it. But anyway, I bang my head against the wall sometimes, but that's a whole other story. Let me, and I don't mean to make light of that, by the way, folks, but let me end this by saying a couple things. Obviously we've got our next round coming up at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Corey is going to be there. We're going to have King of the Baggers there. Corey's got a big announcement on Tuesday about his team, of course. We're also having Mini Cup there. Build Train Races there. So we've got a lot of stuff going on at that round, and it's a favorite of ours to go up there. I'm gonna drive up there. It's about the same distance there as it is to VIR, and I don't mind that trip either. Going up, just going through Chicago is a little bit ridiculous, but once I get past there, it's good. I want to mention real quickly, and this has kind of come to light. It's something I've tried to focus on and push on this podcast several times before, but we have a great corner worker, corner marshal system in our paddock, but a lot of it's volunteer. And we rely on David Hawley, who is our chief steward, our chief corner marshal. I shouldn't say steward. Those are the guys that are up in race control. He's been doing this for a long time. He's got experience in GP and MotoGP, and he runs the whole show. He works with the volunteer system, and you'll see after every race, the riders, including Corey, will wave to the corner workers because they really appreciate those guys and what they do. And as Corey told us in the beginning of this podcast, the corner worker came and talked to him and made sure he was okay. And they're really the first point of contact a lot of times when a rider goes down. But from the point of view of a corner worker, I always say this: it's the best seat in the house. I mean, you can't get a better seat closer up to the actions there. So if you're really into racing and you want to kind of actually sometimes be able to touch these motorcycles, which sometimes is under bad circumstances after they've crashed, but you can provide a very vital part to what we do in MotoAmerica. Like I said, it is mostly a volunteer system. Sometimes there are some paying situations, but all you need to do is go on to MotoAmerica Volunteers, which is a Facebook page, and you can contact David Hawley, dhawley@motoamerica.com, to be a corner worker at our upcoming rounds. Hopefully there are ones near you, but it's well worth it. You get into the track, you get, like I said, the best seat in the house. You get to have some great meals. Our hospitality does a really good job, and it's a really important part of our series. And I think that our corner workers get a lot out of it as well. So I've kind of rambled for a while about it, but it's that important to mention it. And I just want to say that. And I know Corey can underscore the importance of corner workers, especially after recent events with him. But so please get involved in that. It's terrific. And thanks Corey again for being on with us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
That wasn't long-winded. I've heard worse.
Sometimes.
Daily. All right, you guys, have a nice long weekend, and then we'll see you all next week.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.